And we kick off this evening with a look at the cinema.
I'm not a complicated man. I like cinema.
It's beautiful, beautiful cinema.
Cinema history come to life.
I found my solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
with a cinema review.
It is Monday, June 16th, 2025, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster's Reviews. Apologies for the last few weeks. It's been a little hectic in my personal life. Week before, 2 weeks ago, I just was feeling really sick and I just didn't really feel like doing a show. Week after that, I had planned to do a show and my car, one of my tires just completely broke down. I'll be honest, no one has worse luck with their tires than me. I think I've had to replace 4 tires within the last year. It is absolutely terrible, but I'm excited to be talking with you guys tonight. Hate to do this just to give you guys a little heads up. There might be a point where I'm going to have to pause this episode because I just need to take a phone call. That stuff happens. Really shitty just life situations in life right now, but I just want to give you all the heads up. But I did want to come on tonight because I did want to talk movies with you guys. I want to get back into the weekly schedule with you guys because I just enjoy reviewing movies. So I say we jump right in, starting with our first review tonight, How to Train Your Dragon, directed by Dean DeBlois. He was the director of the original How to Train Your Dragon. This is obviously a live-action remake of that animated DreamWorks film from 2010, 15 years later. He is deciding to reimagine this film in the realm of live action. If you've seen that movie, you probably know the story, but I'm just going to give you guys a little heads up. This is set in the fictional town of Berk. Berk is a small Scandinavian town, and they protect their crops and their sheep from dragons that tend to invade their town every single night. Follows a young boy by the name of Hiccup, played by Mason Thames. Hiccup wants to grow up to be a dragon slayer, just like his dad Stoic, played by Gerard Butler, who is essentially the leader of the village of Berk. And one night while a dragon raid is happening, Hiccup accidentally knocks down and incapacitates one of the Night Furies, which is a dragon that no one has been able to knock down. And after he knocks that dragon down, he has a change of heart in terms of slaying it, and he instead decides to train it in order to learn valuable tactics that will help him and the village understand dragons more. Just to give you guys a little heads up onto what I think of that original How to Train Your Dragon film, I love it. I think it is absolutely in the top tier of DreamWorks films. When people talk about the top tier, they usually talk about the Shrek movies. They might talk about the Kung Fu Panda movies. If you were to ask me what my favorite DreamWorks movie, the first How to Train Your Dragon genuinely might be it. I love the fantasy setting. I think it takes a lot of things that can often be annoying with DreamWorks films, whether it's with the whole modern talk in these fantasy realms, and it actually uses it really well. I think the character of Hiccup, him bonding through Toothless. Toothless is the dragon. I think if you know anything about this movie, you've probably seen that black, really cheery dragon that kind of feels like a giant cat. I love the relationship Hiccup has with his dad Stoic. I think How to Train Your Dragon 2 is an excellent sequel. Third one is okay, but I think those first two are just absolutely excellent films. If you know me, you know I haven't been the biggest fan of the Disney live-action remake, so I was sort of curious as to see what DreamWorks was going to do with this remake. And what I will say, if I just to start out on a good note, while I don't think this is an amazing movie by any means, and I don't think it's better than the original, I like this a lot more than a lot of the other Disney live-action remakes. And I think one of the major aspects of that is that it's rare when I see a Disney live-action, a live-action remake like this. I shouldn't call it a Disney live-action remake because it's not made by Disney. It's rare I see a live-action remake that has as much respect for the animated film than this one does. Some of the aggravating things with those Disney live-action remakes is it tends to make like 80% of it shot-by-shot remake, and then when it decides to change certain things, it makes the dumbest and really just minuscule and unnecessary changes to that original text. And it ends up taking these movies that are 85 to 90 minutes and stretching them out to 2 hours and 15 minutes. This one, straight off the bat, I believe the original How to Train Your Dragon is probably like an hour 40, hour 45. This was like 2 hours, so like still padding certain things out by a little, but it's not to like a really like aggressive length. But yeah, like I do think Dean DeBlois, as being the person that did direct that original movie, you can tell he has a lot of respect for that original film. He captures the iconography of Burke. He makes the dragons look really special. The characters feel like their original animated counterparts. They feel developed. They feel like they're handled with class and grace. And I do want to give DreamWorks props to the fact that this does feel like it's not just like this lazy cash grab like a lot of the Disney live action remakes feel. The way Burke does look in this film is phenomenal. Like, this looks exactly like what you would want the live action like Viking town to look like. The way how it makes like the grasses and the water. Like, if you've seen that original movie, you know Burke is like set on like this oceanside like cliff, and it really makes you feel like just like you're out in the nature and just you have these characters that are just like hunting for their food, that are like in the Viking culture, and the way how Burke looks, it looks how you would want a live action version of that to look. So I'll definitely give it props there. The performances from Mason Thames as Hiccup and Nico Parker as Astrid, I think, are really, really great. I do think what made that original How to Train Your Dragon so special is the fact that all the characters are really, really fun, and it does get the core relationship between Hiccup and Astrid down. Hiccup, if you've seen the original, Hiccup obviously has a crush on Astrid. Astrid is sort of like the leader of this new young troop of dragon fighters, and Astrid slowly starts to get like jealous of Hiccup and like gets mad that he is the one that knows all these tactics to take the dragons down. I think both the actors do a really good job at bringing these characters to life. Nico Parker does a great job of showing like Astrid like slowly falling for Hiccup as someone that originally doesn't really care for Hiccup, and then slowly begins to open up about him and see that he does have a lot of good points of showing like, hey, maybe dragons aren't these like vicious beasts that we've been learned to see. Maybe if we try to see why they keep invading us and why maybe there's a reason for why they're violent. Maybe we can get down to a place where we can maybe cohabitat with the dragons. Speaking of the dragons, I will say the CGI for the dragons looks excellent. Like specifically Toothless. Like, if you've seen the trailers, Toothless looks the perfect way as you would expect for a live action Toothless to look. I'm just gonna take care of that. Yep, thank you. Just notifications on my computer. Yeah, Toothless looks the way you would want that dragon to look translating to live action. I heard an interview with Dean DeBlois saying that when they were originally making the movie, Toothless was going to look a lot different. And I think the fact that they were able to just translate that design of the Night Fury to live action, I think was a very faithful design, and I genuinely think it looks great. All the other dragons look good. Like, yes, you can kind of tell they're CGI, but I think but I think the CGI is good enough to the fact that it doesn't really distract you. The only effects shots that are really, really bad, there is one scene where Toothless and Astrid are flying on where Hiccup and Astrid are flying on Toothless at night, and you can very clearly tell it is green screen. I think that is the one moment where I thought the CGI was really lacking, and that is where I thought the effects are really, really lazy. But other than that, I think this is a really beautiful looking movie. In regards to performances, I think the performance that I think everyone's going to remember from this is Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler voiced Stoic in the original How to Train Your Dragon movie, and he comes back to play this character in live action. He absolutely embodies this like strong, burly Viking character that wants his son to follow in his footsteps, but also like feels embarrassed for his son and feels like he genuinely wants to be a good dad for his son. Like, he's not like spitefully like, no, you have to become a dragon slayer like me. You have to put everything that you care for aside in order to fight dragons. Like, I think the fun part about Stoic is at the beginning, he doesn't want Hiccup to become a dragon slayer because he doesn't think he's fit for it. And then as the movie goes on, he slowly starts saying like, no, Hiccup's really good at this. Maybe we should make him a dragon slayer. Well, Hiccup isn't really a dragon slayer. He's more just someone that's really knowledgeable about dragons. And Gerard Butler, I think, plays that character very, very well. A lot of funny moments with the character. Him and Nick Frost. Nick Frost essentially plays like the second in command of the village, and Nick Frost and Gerard Butler vibe off each other very, very well. But yeah, Gerard Butler, oftentimes when you have casting situations like this that feel stunt casting in a way of like, oh, this character voiced this character in a movie, let's have him play him in live action. It can often be like kind of for the worst. This absolutely was not. Gerard Butler was the correct choice to play Hiccup's dad in Stoic. Yeah, like I said, it does follow the same beats as the story of the original How to Train Your Dragon. Like I said, Hiccup befriends Toothless, heals his tail, so that way he can fly. He slowly starts learning all the things he learns about Toothless. For example, he learns that if you tickle a dragon in the right place, it'll like fall over like a dog. Hiccup starts doing that with the dragons in training, and all his classmates are like, holy crud, how do you know this? You are just so smart. And then eventually you learn that the dragons have sort of like a hierarchy and who they obey. I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't seen the original. But if you have seen the original, you know exactly how the story is going to go. While that might be a little sad that you're not really going to get too many big surprises, I don't really think that's too much of a big deal because this is a remake. So if it is going to follow the same follow the same narrative, I do think that's okay. I think the one unfortunate thing is, and I think what is going to make this this movie tough to recommend is, in no way would I ever say that you should watch this movie over the original animated movie, unless you just have this weird aversion as to like you can't connect with cartoons or you just hate animation. If you're a fan of animation, there is no reason to watch this movie over the original because I don't think it does anything specifically better than the original, except for maybe one thing. There is one sort of thing they changed about the third act, which sort of changes like how the dragons work and operate and who is the leader of the dragons. I think that is maybe done a little bit better in this version because I think in the original it's a little confusing as to how the whole dragon hierarchy works. This one changes a little bit of that to make it like a little easier to understand and just sort of like makes it simpler. But other than that, there's really no reason to watch this over the original. The performances are good in this one. They're better. They're better in the original movie. The character relationships are good in this movie. They're better in the original movie. This movie is a good movie. That animated film is amazing. The score of this movie by John Powell, it uses a lot of similar music beats to that original film. And while those music beats are good here, they're not going to be better than when you watched them in that original film. And while the flying scenes are okay here, watching Hiccup fly Toothless in the animated version, I think is one of the best 3D films I think I had ever seen. It's just unfortunately not the same. And when you make a remake, you want to see certain things maybe be an improvement. Unfortunately, they're just not enough. There are not enough factors to separate this from the original version. I know I said that was a plus, and I do think that is a plus that it does respect the original film. But if I had to compare the two, there's no reason why I would say you shouldn't watch that original animated film. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, 0 being amazing, 10 being 0 being awful, 10 being amazing, I'm going to give it a solid 7 videotapes out of 10. I think this is a good movie, and I'm not going to dissuade the quality. If your kids like the original How to Train Your Dragon movie, I think they are going to still enjoy this film. If you like that original movie, you're going to like this movie. But at the same time, in the future, like if you're going to go see this movie, I guess go see it in theaters so you can have this like big screen experience. But in the future, like 5 years in the future, where you're like, oh, that's right, they made a live action How to Train Your Dragon movie, I see it getting forgotten because at the end of the day, there's no reason to watch this movie over the original film. But I can't lie and say that it's not a good movie because I do think it is. So yeah, I say we head to our second review of the night, that being Materialists, directed by Celine Song. This is the second film from Celine Song after her incredible debut 2 years ago with Past Lives. Past Lives is a little bit of history with Cinemaster's reviews. That was the first ever film that I gave a 10 out of 10 videotapes to. It's one of my favorite films of the 2020s so far. I think what that movie has to say about settling down and like potential relationships in your life. I think it is such a beautiful film and like one of my personal favorites. I love that movie. So I was really excited for Celine Song's follow-up with Materialist. This is about a matchmaker by the name of Lucy, played by played by Dakota Johnson. She is a matchmaker in New York, meaning she has clients who single clients who come to see her, and she finds certain interests and similarities between these clients in a potential way to matchmake them in order for them to become a couple. You know that Lucy is very, very good at her job, but you also know that she's chronically single. From just like what her friends say, it's apparently by her choice. But all this changes when she meets a very desirable bachelor, played by Pedro Pascal. He is in finance. It's Pedro Pascal, so he is incredibly, incredibly good looking. He has a ton of money, doesn't have any roommates, and all seems great. But at the same time, this is also a moment. Pedro Pascal plays a character named Harry. Harry is the brother of one of the clients of Lucy that just recently got married. At the same time, though, one of Lucy's ex-boyfriends, John, played by Chris Evans, a character that doesn't really have a ton of money, but he's also a struggling actor who still lives with his roommates, who has much more of an artistic mindset than Harry, sort of enters her life, and Lucy just sort of starts weighing the odds of, do I go with Pedro Pascal, who is very, very, very rich, and I'm going to have a very comfortable life with him, but maybe a little boring, or do I go with the person that I really, really love, but it's also going to be a much more challenging life because he's just not that financially stable, with Chris Evans. Now I know, let's just get the elephant out of the room. She's choosing between Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans. And played by Dakota Johnson, maybe three of the most attractive people, like having these making a woe is me movie. I get that that's not going to be like the most appealing type of movie for a lot of people, but if you look past that, I still think unfortunately this movie is a big step down from past lives, and I think the major reason is it has no idea what tone it wants to set for the film it's making. Like, I think Past Lives very much knew, well, it has some humorous moments. It wanted to be a very serious look at romance and relationships. This movie doesn't know whether it wants to be a romantic comedy, whether it wants to be a straight romance film, whether it wants to be a romantic tragedy. This movie opens with showing, the opening is wild. You see these two cavemen falling in love, and it's supposed to be shown to us as these are the two people that the first two people that ever decided to be married. And then we smash cut to Dakota Johnson sitting in her office in New York. And when I saw this opening, I was like, did I walk into the right movie? Like, I would have thought I walked into the wrong movie if it didn't say a Celine song film with when the studio logos ended. Like, I was just like, what are we doing? There are certain like storylines that start showing up that I will get more into. But yeah, I think the major reason why this movie struggles so much is it doesn't know whether it wants to be a romantic comedy or just a straight romance film. And a lot of movies can juggle those tones. I think Broadcast News is a movie that juggles those tones well. I think Annie Hall is a wonderful movie that juggles those tones well. I think that Celine Song may have bit off a bit more than she could chew with this movie, and I think it just feels a little bit too muddled and cluttered and doesn't know what it necessarily wants to be. I will say, when it's not trying to be a romantic comedy, I think it does ask some very honest questions about relationships and what people want. I think when we first meet Lucy, she is just like, hey, my number one non-negotiable in a relationship is I need to marry a man who is rich and well off. And it's rare that you ever like are following a romance movie where your character is just that openly honest up front, and it's not asking you to necessarily hate that character. Like, that trait might come up in a character that you're supposed to dislike, but the movie makes no secret in saying, hey, it wants you to sympathize and empathize with Lucy, which I do think it does a decent job at. But these characters are very, very honest. As the title might say, Lucy is a very materialistic character, and you learn a little into the movie that the reason why Lucy and John broke up was because she just couldn't handle that money was always going to be a struggle with him. And she hated herself for that, but she was like, I need to be honest. And I think that is a very brave stance that a movie can take. And I think this was and I think Celine Song was asking challenging questions, and I do applaud her for making a movie like that. Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal are good in this movie. They are actors that I tend to enjoy. They've done bad things. Pedro Pascal is an actor I often really enjoy. He is like becoming a big movie star, and I applaud him because holy crud, does he deserve it? But the performance that really stuck out for me was Chris Evans. I think Chris Evans is probably most well known for Captain America. For the Captain America movies, he really hasn't impressed me a lot with his choices in movies outside of Knives Out and the MCU, whether it's Ghosted, whether it's just Ghost was the first thing that came to my mind, but just like a lot, oh my gosh, Red One, or The Gray Man, like he tends to make these really weird choices, and I've seen him do good things, whether it's Knives Out or Snowpiercer, so I know he can do good things, but he's just one of those actors where I've always wanted to get out of the MCU bubble to show if he is like a more talented actor, and I will say, he definitely gives the best performance in this movie. I think he is easily playing the most sympathetic character, where Chris Evans does a great job of playing disappointment clouded by trying to just present it in a happy way. Because like when he first meets Lucy, he can very clearly tell that Lucy and Harry are gonna be getting together, and he's just trying to say like, hey, let's try to be friends. Let's try to see this and see if this friendship can work out. But you can very clearly tell that this character has a lot of sadness still held into this character. We see him interact with his roommates, and you can tell that he hates his roommates because all his roommates are kind of awful to him in the way they just do not treat his apartment with respect. And then the moments towards the end of the film, like I think the reason why this movie has saved a lot for me is the fact that the ending is really just solely focused on Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson, and you have Chris Evans just say like, "Hey, if we're gonna be together, we have to be together. Like you have to accept me for who I am, and I want to accept you." But if you're not going to accept this and you're always going to complain about this, then why are we going to be together? And I don't want to spoil what happens, but I think Chris Evans adds a lot of heart and a lot of humanity to this character. That while it might take a little bit for you to look past the fact that, hey, this down on his luck actor looks like Chris Evans, so like, oh wow, you must really struggle. I think he brings a lot of heart to this role. The number one complaint I have with this movie, it has a storyline that is introduced about halfway into this movie that does not clash with the whole love triangle aspect of the plot at all, and almost ruins it. We have a situation where you learn that one of Lucy's clients has had a really awful experience with a date, and Lucy starts like really doubting herself as to whether or not she is a good matchmaker. And I just think with the way how this movie just goes from 0 to 60 in terms of its stakes with this side plot, like I don't want to get into, but it gets into some heavy stuff with what happens on this date. I just felt like Celine Song was feeling that this movie may have been just a little fluffy without it, and I think including it just felt it just honestly felt unnecessary. And I think there were different ways as to make you feel for Lucy and make her feel doubt as to whether or not she's doing a good job being a matchmaker. And I think Celine Song may have just thought, hey, I need to put this really traumatic thing in there to have Lucy think whether or not she's good at her job. Nick and Bo just said, oh, I got a comment. I'm going to check the Materialists out. Interested in how this directed presented a woman who says she needs to make who makes money. I want to know what the overall theme is. Yeah, the overall theme is I think it is showing that we all have materialistic tendencies. Like all three of the characters in this movie have certain things that they are just a little bit materialistic about. But I think the theme is, if you are going to find true happiness, I think you have to look past that a little. But at the same time, it is okay for you to have standards. So I think each character is able to compromise in certain ways in order to be happy in the end. And that is why, while this movie is very messy and very clunky, especially with that plot I said about one of Lucy's clients, I think it does come together at the end. I think it's just because Celine Song is a storyteller. I can tell that writes a lot from her heart. Obviously, Past Lives is a super personal story for her. I don't believe this is quite as personal for her, but maybe it is. I will definitely look into that. But yeah, while this movie is a little sloppy at points, I do think it comes together at the end. I'd say the funniest scenes in this movie are probably where Lucy is interviewing her clients about like what they want. Like one of the guys is like, all right, so I just turned 48 and I think I'm done dating like women in their early 20s, and I would like to date someone a little bit closer to my age. And she's like, okay, well, I have this client. She's 39. I think she would really love you. It's like, whoa, 39. That's pretty old. I'm thinking more like 27. And just you see the just like life leave Dakota Johnson's face. And I do think that was very funny. So yeah, like this movie has a lot of good aspects, and I think it does come together at the end in a good way. I just think it was just sort of biting off a little bit more than it can chew with certain themes. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I am going to give it a slightly passing score of a 6 out of 10. I do think it is enjoyable enough, and I think it is going to have people talking with certain decisions that the characters make, even though it doesn't all maybe come together in the cleanest way towards the end. You do have three great you do have three solid performances at the center. It does know that, I'll be honest, when you have just like high class people just interacting in New York, that is something that I enjoy watching. It's just one of those types of movies that I do enjoy watching. I love those Whit Stillman movies, whether it's Metropolitan or whether it's Last Days of Disco. I like a lot of Baumbach movies when you have these characters just that are like a little more high class, just sort of talking about big ideas. I tend to get sucked up in that, even if it's not maybe the cleanest type of story, which I don't think this necessarily is. But yeah, 6 out of 10. If you have time, I would say go see it in theaters. I do think there are better movies out there. I wasn't able to review it last week. The Phoenician Scheme is so good. I would give that like probably closer to like an 8, 8.5. Really funny movie. I would highly recommend going to check this out. But if you want more original movies about just characters talking about their ideas, Materialists is one I would say to check it out in some format. But thank you all for watching this episode. Remember to like the video, and subscribe to the video store. It helps grow our channel a lot. Next week, I'm going to be reviewing 28 Years Later. This is the third film in the 28 Days franchise. Danny Boyle is coming back. I'm really excited for that. As well as Elio, the newest film from Pixar. So next week, going to be pretty exciting. Thank you all for watching. It has been a pleasure talking movies with you. And as always, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day we'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.